Ladies and gentlemen, in this Red Gaming Total Code video, we're going to be further discussing Xbox One. Recently, the Xbox Corporate Vice President, Marc Whitten, has lamented and has said that if they could go back, Microsoft could go back to when the Xbox One was first announced, they would have been more open and complete regarding the features, the policies, as well as the merits of his upcoming console. By the way, guys, I'm hoping that I've managed to eliminate all the noise of the fan that is near me. It is ridiculously hot in the UK, so I've needed to turn it on and keep it on throughout the recording process. Not that I normally do that, but it is honestly, I'm sweltering and I'm just sitting here. So anyway, one of the things that Microsoft has been fairly vocal about, and not just Microsoft, a variety of different critics, both in the video game industry as well as business analysts, have said that Microsoft really screwed up when they announced the system. It was a travesty. They were not only on the defensive rather consistently, but they just didn't expect gamers to respond the way they did. And the problem is that people became so focused on the bad that the good points were never raised, and Microsoft tried to point those good points out. However, to most people's minds, the good points were just... It was almost like, imagine if you are on like a seesaw, or whatever you guys want to call it, and, you know, there's this really hefty elephant sitting on one side, and then you get, you know, a petite ballerina on the other. Think of the elephant being the bad points in people's minds, and this little ballerina being the good points. In other words, they just couldn't get away from it. And that's not to say that all of the stuff, the cloud-based nature, was bad. For example, the family sharing plan, there's actually been a recent petition regarding this, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But Microsoft just wasn't able to get onto this black cloud, if you will. So I'm going to read you guys out a quote during this interview. "We've just got to talk to people, get them understanding what our system is. The thing that's really gratifying is that people are excited about the type of features that are possible. And it's sort of a shame on us that we haven't done a good job as we could to make people feel like that's where we're headed. The number one thing I want to do is I want to get a product out, but certainly... all I want to do right now is talk about how we thought these features, how we thought about Xbox Live worked, how digital works. I see people feeling like we've moved away from digital, when certainly I don't believe that's the case. I believe we're added on choice for people. It was an addition of a feature onto the Xbox One, not a removal of a feature. And I understand that people see things like family sharing and they're like, wow, I was really looking forward to that, which is more of an engineering reality time frame type of thing. We need to do more work to talk to about what we're going, because I think we did something different than maybe how people are perceiving it. When I read back some of the things like that person from my perspective, we took a lot of feedback, and while Xbox One is built to be a digital native, to have the amazing online experiences, we realized people wanted some choice. They wanted what I like to call the bridge, sort of how they think of the world today, using more digital stuff. What we did, we added to what the console can do by providing physical and offline modes in the console. It isn't really about moving away from the digital vision of the platform, it's about adding the choice. Frankly, I still think we just need to let people know on how the console works, and what we're going to be able to do with it. I think a lot of the things they're wishing for are frankly still there. If there's something that people are really excited about and want, we're going to make sure that they find the right way to bring about it. I probably should have been more clear. We took some of the feedback and realized that there was some stuff we needed to add to the program. To add it to the program, we had to make room, just from a pure engineering perspective, to be able to get the work done." Whitten himself also commented on the family sharing, that despite the fact it won't be in the launch window because of the logistical decision, it could well come back in some form or another in the future. Now, one argument that a lot of us, or not argument, but one concern we've all had is, okay, that's nice, what happens if I live in country A, you live in country B, you are on my share plan, but in country B, that game is not available. What happens? Well, he basically said that Microsoft would not region block the games, but, and this is the key part, it would be up to the publishers. Sound familiar? So what are my thoughts on this? Well, despite the fact that his interview was not exactly a shining light, it's not exactly a beacon in the dark. We knew a lot about this stuff anyway. But I think Microsoft themselves realized just how pitifully they handled it, and it took them a good couple of months. The problem is, when you change something for the better, or from the better or worse, the fact is it's still a change, and people deal with change about as well as what they deal with being run over by a tractor. The problem is that people are only really willing to see a change if it's going to heavily benefit them. And in Microsoft's case, they banged on about the power of the cloud, and, great, I have no issues with that. They banged on about various other abilities, but then there were some huge PR disasters. Don Matrick, the man... people were actually joking that he was an agent from Sony. I'm being serious. I've heard a couple of memes on that. And, some of the quotes he gave were just ridiculous. And the problem was that, despite the fact that the cloud, the internet connectivity, it has a lot of benefits, but it also has a lot of disadvantages. And one thing I said is that I did applaud Microsoft for trying something different. The problem is that they're trying to, and we know this from various emails that have been going on internally from within the company, they want to focus their business on services as well as devices. The thing about a service is that it is that thing that continues to come back. The problem with an online-only console, the problem with the 24-hour check-in, first of all, it's not particularly fantastic. It's not great for those of us who have crappy internet connections. However, for those of us who have the best internet connection in the universe, there are still issues with it. People don't like the idea of a game of a service because people like to collect their games. They like the idea of being able to say in 10 years' time, 5 years' time, hey, you know what, I want to play this game. And the problem is, people were immediately, mentally just seeing that Microsoft, at some point or another, will close down certain servers. It's inevitable, because you cannot, as a business, guarantee that a service will be available in 10 years' time. Why? Because you may go out of business. It may become ludicrously unprofitable. It could cause issues with crashing. There could be something else. You just don't know what's going to happen, and therefore you cannot guarantee this stuff. More to the point, anyway, in 10 years' time, what makes you even think that we're going to be connecting the way we are? We don't know how the networks are going to be dealing with things. And so, with all of this said, people just were they basically approached it with some trepidation. Not that I blame them. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at companies like Electronic Arts and others who have been shutting down various titles, as well as issues with their own running of the titles, this is the problem. And Microsoft, I think the biggest issue that they had, I'll be completely bluntly, truthfully honest, I think that the biggest problem they had was the 24-hour check-in. I think that was the killer. And because they added this in, it made it to the point where you had to... It was almost like, yes sir, I've been good. You feel like you're in school rather than you're actually an adult, or you're actually a paying member of something. You feel like you're being treated as a criminal, and that's not necessarily really how they were going with this. That's not really their intention, maybe, but the problem is, intention and how people react and how people interpret things are two completely different things. And Microsoft's message was pretty garbled at times, and that's a shame, actually, is what it comes down to. Because people were saying, look, the games aren't even mine. You're releasing a less powerful system than the PlayStation. What do you actually bring to the table other than me needing to, check in every 24 hours? And I think another thing, of course, that they also screwed up as I've mentioned previously, were the lack of focus on the games initially and all of this other stuff. And I think that Microsoft, I would concur that they did screw up the initial launch. They even screwed up somewhat E3 as well. And that's not to say that I think Sony did a fantastic job either. I mean, it was to the point where at times Sony just had to stand there and just kind of watch at many points, and they didn't really have to reinvent the wheel. They didn't have to do anything, they just had to just watch Microsoft just screw up. And then they just said, oh, you know what? I actually don't want to throw myself down the stairs. I think I won't do that. I think I'll go this opposite way, down this escalators rather than just, try and jump up and down on the stairs on my face all day long. Because I think Sony themselves, there were certain things I like about the PlayStation. I do like how easy it is to access. I do like how programmable it is. I do like how powerful it is. But I don't particularly think that Sony could be accused of trying to break the mold. And I don't have a particular problem with that, as it turns out. I like the fact in many ways that they're focusing heavily on the games, because after all, one would assume that I'm buying a games console for the games. But that's the problem. Microsoft kind of screwed up, and despite the fact that he's trying to backpedal, despite the fact that he's saying, you know what, we're adding features. The reality of the matter is that we all know that that's not quite true. And obviously, they're not exactly happy. Regardless, there have been a number of reports regarding this whole fan petitions about adding back in the always online requirements. Apparently, and I don't know how true this is, but various websites are reporting it, so I assume it's fairly accurate. It's actually a lot of Sony fans who are apparently signing the petition. And apparently the reason behind that is they said that they want the Xbox to fail, which is, I don't know, I think that's a pretty petty and crappy reason, if I'm totally honest. Regardless, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I will hopefully see you soon. Take care, and bye for now.